Hey there, space fans. So happy 2019, happy New Year. Hope you're all having a good New Year so far. This isn't something I typically do. I'm not really big into doing videos and things like that. I'm more of a picture guy. But hey, new year, new me, and I thought I'd get into some more interesting new habits, I guess you can say. So last week, I think it was last Thursday, I was sitting at a Starbucks, just kind of waiting for my car to get fixed at the auto dealer down the street, and I set up at one of those long tables, and I'm just working and doing my stuff. And while I'm there, this family comes by and sits down at the end of the table near me, and so it's a mom and her two kids, a little girl, little boy. And they were good. It was cute. The kids were entertaining themselves, and they were talking to mom. And the little girl, maybe about 6 or 7 years old, she was asking her mom questions. How does this work? How does that work? One of them was, how does somebody become president? So the mom was explaining how the voting process works. It was really cute. I could obviously hear what was going on. I didn't have headphones on or anything, and I'm sitting there with my laptop, and I've got my NASA sticker on my laptop. And I don't know if it was because of that or, just because of natural kids' curiosity, but right before I could tell they were packing up to leave and stuff, and the girl comes up with this question, and she says, "Mom, what would happen if the Earth stopped spinning? Or what would happen if the Earth stopped rotating or something?" And so, of course, my ears pick up because of space, and I'm a big nerd. And I could tell the mom was kind of, she was a little bit stumped on this one. She was like, "Oh, I'm not quite sure." And I peeked over there, and it was funny. The little girl kind of like looked my way. I didn't jump in with an answer, and I feel like I really should have. I should have taken the opportunity to say, well, actually, and but I didn't. And so now I'm kind of like, I've been thinking about it for a few days, and I said, yeah, I really should have given an answer as to what would happen if the Earth stopped rotating. So this is my attempt to kind of in a post way answer that question. Little 7-year-old girl in Starbucks on Route 2 in Warwick on Thursday. Let's see, what was that? January 3rd. Here's your answer, and Mom, I hope it helps you answer it if you ever see this. Basically, well, the Earth isn't going to stop rotating, so it's not an issue of what will happen when. It's not something that can happen. But if it did, it would be really bad. It'd be really bad for us. It would be really bad for everything that's evolved to live on our planet as we know it. Excuse me, I don't do video, so I'm just kind of like recording off of QuickTime here. So our planet, the whole thing, going around the sun, okay, making one revolution around the sun, that takes a year to do, 365.25 days, okay? And then it takes 24 hours to rotate once on its axis. So it's doing that as it's going around the sun. So we're going to talk about the axial rotation. Okay, so you have a spinning globe, almost as like a classroom globe. You can spin it. That's the rotation we're talking about, not the revolution around the sun that takes a year. So if that rotation were to, for example, tomorrow at noon, suddenly stop. Like that, it's not rotating anymore. That would just be super bad. That would literally be end of the world type stuff for everything that's living on the planet, because all of that speed, all of that rotational energy, okay, all almost 1,100 mile an hour speed of this whole planet stopping at once, that would force everything that's basically not completely attached to the crust to go flying off in the direction that it was going anyway at nearly 1,100 miles an hour. So that's the atmosphere, okay, that's moving as well. Water, Buildings would probably not be able to withstand that sort of momentum and sudden stress, that sudden deceleration. Like they say, it's not the fall that gets you, that sudden stop at the end. Well, this is that sudden stop, except that there's nothing to stop you from flying forward. So yeah, that's something that you really wouldn't want to have happen. Basically, everything would keep moving at that speed. Gravity would still be there, okay, but you would suddenly be shot forward at that speed, 1,100 miles an hour. So yeah, no good. Let's not do that. Now, if this were to happen over a very slow period of time, or a very long period of time, let's say, I don't know. I'm not even really sure here. I don't have any documents in front of me, but hundreds or thousands of years. Now, you might have to be longer than this, but if it were to gradually slow down, that would be a different story. You wouldn't have the instance of everything flying forward that wasn't nailed down to Earth's crust. What you would have happen is eventually, if you're talking about no rotation at all, okay, it's not a synchronous rotation where the Earth eventually is aiming one side towards the sun and one side out, kind of like our moon does, but rather it literally is not rotating. It's staying in one fixed position through the course of the entire year. Well, what that means is half the year, any one spot on Earth would have a complete day. Okay, so 365 divided by 2, that's how long your day would be, and then your night would be the rest of the year. And that would really just mess up everything that's evolved to live on our planet, including us. We're used to a 24-hour day cycle. So, maybe the things that live deep underwater, or the things that live underground or in caves, they wouldn't notice much. But what they would notice is a very big temperature change, because during the course of that half-year-long daytime, the sun's energy is heating up one side of Earth a lot more than it is the other side. So you'd end up with winds would change direction, they would be a lot more powerful, and areas near the equator would be really hot, a lot hotter than they are now, because they're basically being baked for all of that time, and then they're being frozen or cooling off for the rest of the time, for half a year. So it's kind of like what happens at the poles, where they have long periods of nighttime and daytime where the sun never really sets below the horizon, except this is happening across the entire planet. So temperature gradients, temperature changes affect how wind works, affects how ocean currents work, especially at the surface level. So, that would really screw things up. That would not be good, like I said, for anything that has evolved to live on the surface of our planet like we have today, with our pleasant 24-hour day, and how basically how the temperatures work. If you would have to go to, your temperature would base on your latitude, okay? Near the equator, it would probably be way too hot for any people to live there. So everybody would be migrating up towards the poles, and places in the mid latitudes. I did do some research online, and one of or a couple of interesting effects of a non-rotating Earth would also be all of the water in the oceans right now has a bit of a bulge around the equator, and that's because of the way our Earth rotates. The centripetal force forces the water to kind of pool a little bit or bulge up a little bit around the equator. If the world weren't spinning, that would smooth out, which means that around the entire planet, all of the water that's kind of bulging up around the equatorial regions would start to move back up towards in the northern hemisphere, the North Pole, and in the southern hemisphere, the South Pole. So the oceans at the poles would be a lot deeper than they are today. And what would happen is the coastlines around the equatorial regions would also be different. So it's been estimated that you would actually have kind of an equatorial continent after all that water moves around. There would be, or at least there would be these land bridges and stuff as the differences, and I guess the differences are that strong, where you would end up with polar oceans and a lot more landmass around the equator and temperate regions. And another thing that would happen is if the Earth wasn't spinning long enough, eventually the molten core on the inside, Earth's molten iron core, which creates the magnetic field around our planet, if that stopped, the magnetic field generation activity would turn off, which means we would no longer have the Van Allen belts, we would no longer have the aurora, the northern and southern lights, and we would no longer have the shield that protects us against cosmic radiation and radiation from the sun. So that would be, again, really, really bad for anything living on the surface of the planet. It would be a really hazardous place if all of a sudden all of this extra radiation could pour down to the surface and mess with life, mess with DNA, and basically it's just a lot more of a radiation environment surface, kind of like what you see on Mars today, or the surface of a world that doesn't have any sort of magnetic field or atmosphere like the moon. So luckily, like I said, this isn't going to happen. We don't have to worry about the planet stopping rotating. It is, in fact, slowing down a little bit because of the gravitational pull from the sun and the moon, acting as a bit of a brake. But any slowdown is very, very small. It's in the sense of milliseconds per year that affects the rotation of the planet. So it's nothing we would ever have to worry about. At the very, very least, billions of years in the future, I suppose the planet could fall into a tidally locked rotation around the sun, which means one side always faces the sun and one side always faces away. But again, this is billions of years in the future, and by that point our sun's already going to expand into a red giant and do all sorts of other things to our planet, and but we won't be around to watch that. Whatever's left of humanity will have hopefully moved out into the galaxy and started life and settled in other places. And by the way, the way evolution works, who knows what humans will be like by that point. So that's what would happen if the Earth stopped rotating. It's kind of a big answer, and that's why I really didn't, jump in there, because it'd be a lot to explain. Maybe more questions in the car ride home from Mom. So, but anyway, I hope that answers that bit of a question. Who knows? Maybe if send more questions, I'll try to come up with some answers. I'll do a little bit of research. I know I'm probably not 100% correct on all of these or hit all the points. Maybe not even 75%. But hey, this is me trying to explain something that you can tell your kids and have them look further into it. Okay, Jason Major, JP Major on Twitter. Have a great year. Hope to see you again soon.